Welcome to the third Excel training video. This video will walk you through how to create calculated fields and calculated items in a pivot table, as well as giving you an example of how this functionality could be used in your finance roles. Oftentimes, it is important for an executive or a project lead to understand the unique profitability of an individual. Assuming all skills are equal, it is obviously beneficial for an executive to forecast the most profitable set of resources. As the profitability of resources varies significantly from one time and materials or even cost plus contract to the next, a clear understanding of each individual's profitability using a specific rate card can help a project lead make important staffing decisions so that each contract they manage achieves the highest possible profitability. Today's example uses a COMET report, the payroll cost to serve report, as the source data that will be used to summarize a resource's forecasted profitability. This Excel functionality can also be used to review the profitability of a resource using a combination of the SAP ZCJI3 report and a contract's FBC labor book. We encourage you to practice this skill using different source data to better familiarize yourself with Excel's capabilities. After downloading the Payroll Cost to Serve report, go to the Cost to Serve tab. Select All by hitting the button in the top left corner. On the Excel ribbon, click Insert. Within the table subset of the grouping, click Pivot Table. Within the Create Pivot Table menu, ensure the range selected contains all of the data on the new Cost to Serve tab. Also ensure that you want the pivot table report to be placed into a new worksheet. Click OK. We encourage you to choose the pivot table settings, which are well organized and professional given a specific task. For this exercise, in order to keep the data neat and easy to follow, we will use the classic pivot table layout. While your cursor is within the pivot table you just created, go to the Pivot Table Tools section of the Excel ribbon and select Options. Select Options again from the Pivot Table subset of the grouping, and in the Pivot Table Options menu, select Display. Lastly, check the classic pivot table layout. This will force the data you add to a pivot table to be added horizontally rather than vertically to make a simple, concise profitability report for your project lead. Using the pivot table field list, we will select the data we would like to include in this report. If it is not already visible, the field list should be visible while your cursor is clicked inside of the pivot table you've created. If not, you can view it by going to the Pivot Table Tools section of the Excel ribbon, selecting Options, and within the Show subset of that group, selecting Field List. We are calculating the profitability by resource, so our row labels will include descriptors for those resources. Within the field list, select SAP Personnel Number. Drag this field to the row label section of the pivot table field list. Repeat this step with the resource name category. Excel may automatically create subtotals for each personnel number. While this may be useful in some cases, because we're trying to keep this report as concise as possible for ease of viewership, we will want to remove these subtotals. Select one of these subtotal cells. Right-click and uncheck Subtotal. Now we will select the values used to calculate a resource's profitability. In this example, we will want to drag the billings and loaded payroll fields to the values section of the pivot table field list. Because there are blanks and/or text values in these columns, Excel will automatically count how many instances of each value there are per resource. To change this, you will need to select a cell in the Count of Billings column. Right-click, go to the Summarize Values By, and click Sum. Repeat this step with the Count of Loaded Payroll column. Now, to create our calculated fields to calculate profitability by resource, we will need to go to the Pivot Tables Tools section of the Excel ribbon and select Options. Within the Calculations subset of that grouping, select Fields, Items, and Sets, and click on Calculated Field. In the Insert Calculated Field menu, name the calculated field we are creating Profitability. The formula is where we create a calculated field using the fields available in the pivot table. To make things easier, rather than typing out the formula, you can use Insert Fields from the list within the Insert Calculated Field menu. In our case, we will want to create a formula that equals left parenthesis and double-click on the Billings field, minus and double-click on the Loaded Payroll field, right parenthesis, divided by Billings. Excel will automatically include this calculated field as a part of your pivot table. Before you send this report to your project lead, you may want to rename and sort values for their benefit. Highlight the Sum of Billings cell and type Billings. Highlight the Sum of Loaded Payroll cell, type Payroll Cost. Highlight the Sum of Profitability cell and type Estimated Profit Percentage. Select cells in the Estimated Profit Percentage column and change the font to percentage. Lastly, be creative. Use some of the automatic conditional formatting functionality Excel has to highlight resources' profitability, or lack of. Highlight the data contained in the Estimated Profit Percentage column of the pivot table. On the Excel ribbon, select Home. Within the Style subset of that grouping, select Conditional Formatting. Select Color Scales, and in the first column, third row, select the green-white color scale. As you can see now, the most profitable resources have dark green highlighting, while the least profitable resources have white highlighting. This concludes this Excel video module. If you have any questions about this Excel functionality, or in any general, please reach out to Stas Krakowiak of the Excel Training Video team. Thank you.